always still in love. Why if they alright, baby? Can we still try? Tell me that we'll be fine. Always still in love.
Welcome again back to another installment of the Black Bonnet Live panel. How are y'all doing? Happy Sunday. I hope you guys are doing well. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into it. I just want to quickly introduce our guest today, because if you guys notice, we are, a lot more than 4. So Courtney, one of the guests is currently busy checking her oven, but you guys can start it off. Schwartz, if you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself.
What's going on? My name is Schwartzen, spoken word artist out of New York, Staten Island, and here to support the sis Moyo, here for the facts. Sit back and relax.
For you, bars.
Right.
Yeah.
Chanel, you want to go next?
Hey everyone, my name is Chanel. I'm here with Moyo. This is my sister. We're here ready to do this Black Bonded series, talk about all these topics, give you the facts, inform you, and just teach y'all and for us to learn too.
Go on, Tate.
That's me.
Exactly.
How you doing? I'm Tate. Here is, again, like everybody else, supporting Moyo, supporting the family, talking about some controversial topics and some great topics that need to be discussed in our community. Here to just get it popping.
Amazing. Okay, so now today we have some guests along with us. We have my beautiful sister, Chanel. I said Chanel. Y'all, it's late. I'm sorry, my brain. I mean Courtney. I have my beautiful sister, Courtney, Cyerra, and Jessica. You guys could just quickly introduce yourself as well as, your podcast that you guys have as well. Courtney, you want to go first?
Sure. Hey, I'm Courtney. I go to school at Moyo, musical theater major, senior, finally. I'm super excited to just be on this and just chat with all of you. And we're in a podcast called Plug-In, which is a Christian-based podcast. Definitely tune into that. I'll definitely give more information to Moyo so she can share with all y'all. But yeah, good to be here.
Jessica.
I'm Jess. Ooh, period. I'm Jess. I also go to school with Moyo and Courtney. Boo. I'm an acting major, dance minor, a junior. She, her pronouns, period. And I'm really good to be here. I'm also in the Plug-In podcast. If you want to try to, get right, live life, period, go ahead and listen at plugin.podcast, period. But yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Cyerra.
Hi, I'm Cyerra, she, her, hers pronouns. I also go to school at Moyo. I'm a junior physics major. I am really excited to talk about what we're about to talk about today because I got a lot to say, got a lot to learn, got a lot to hear from everybody else. Very excited, very happy to be able to support my big sister. So I'm excited to be chatting with everybody today.
Amazing. All right, so now that the introductions are out the way, let's jump right into today's conversation. So the first thing, in this week's episode, I talked about the strong Black woman and how, ironically enough, it's killing and affecting Black women's health and our way of living. So let's just start off with first impressions. What did you guys first think about the episode? What did you guys learn? We're surprised to hear about, whoever wants to start first can literally jump right in and just talk about, their first impressions.
I'd love to. I actually just finished watching it. Sorry, I had a lot of work to do today.
You're fine.
But I actually enjoyed it a lot because it was a lot of I know. Yes, absolutely, 100%. It was a lot of relating to topics like that, and I like that you tied it from a social and a societal aspect also into something that translates into health and how that affects us from one spot all the way to the other.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah.
I really. You go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, yo, thank you. So, I thought it was a very dope conversation to talk about because, like in the media and a lot of movies and TV that we see today, like, there's always like the one stereotype of the Black woman's body, and like, it's very, I don't know, I guess it ostracizes, or it like telescopes into a certain body type, and if you don't fit that certain body type as like a Black woman, then you're not nothing, or if you don't have the P on your booty, you not nothing or whatever. And it's really good to like have that conversation about learning like how to break that, or how to like break free from that, or what we focus on so much in media. Like, should that be our norm? Should that be what we're going towards? Should that be our goal? And absolutely not. You talked beautifully, Moyo, and I appreciated everything you said, and that's on what period.
Thanks, sis. Chanel.
Yeah, I agree with Sierra and Jess of like everything that they were saying. It wasn't for me. It took all the way to get to college to even realize these things. But because before, I thought it was like something was wrong with me. Like especially with the strong women, like not being open up or being vulnerable. It was more so like whether it was ex boyfriends or my friends or whoever, it was like, why you don't say nothing about yourself or things like that. Like why don't you share things? And it's just like that's supposed to be normal. So it wasn't until like college and learning later on. So I'm glad that we're having these conversations, and younger people are having these conversations so that they don't have to realize this when they're in their 20s already, and know this like when they're young, so they don't like have to go through the same insecurities that we kind of have to go through growing up.
Yeah. The guys, y'all been awfully quiet, which I think.
Go ahead,
Uh,
Tate.
no, for me, no, it was something that was very important. Also, being raised by a Black woman, it's something that was prevalent in my entire life. Seeing it and speaking about it is obviously me being just her son and male. I haven't had those conversations or hear those conversations. So, seeing it and immediately identifying everything you were speaking about with my mother, who's my everything, and my grandmother as well. Like I even have them on my screen protector. These two women, everything for me. So having a conversation is needed. And it also puts a lot of things in perspective of a lot of things I didn't know, like the first time seeing my mom cry and certain things like that, how it just affected me growing up just as a Black man. So it was a powerful message. Yeah.
Schwartz.
Yeah, so I watched it twice. I watched it the first time. I sent it over to Brandon to Tate. To Tate, yo, you gotta watch this, bro. You supposed to text me, Tate.
No,
Yeah,
my bad.
and then I watched it again today, right? And it really hit me the second time. Like, so, like, you my sister-in-law. I agree, but I think for this time I'm gonna have to disagree with some of it.
Come on!
You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be real, right? This is a safe space. I had to disagree with it. I talked to my shorty about it, or I talked to my queen about it. I said, what, like some of the facts you was really hitting on some facts, and then some of it I was like, yo, like Tate said, like, yo, when you're raised by a single Black woman, I guess I'll say the first part. You see your mom as a superhuman. Like she do all of that. She came from so much struggle. I told my queen. I said it's hard not to see you as superwoman, as superhuman. It's hard not to see the cake when I know you came through so much. And I wasn't raised by my biological mother, but the mothers who did raise me, yo, they had 5, 6 kids, and then they took, had more mouths to feed. So, we'll talk about it more in the episode as we hit on the topics, because you hit on a lot, and I was like, ooh, sis, like, ooh, ah.
Okay. Since we're just on the roll, let's just continue the ball. So now the question I want to ask is, since I have such beautiful Black ladies here, let's just jump right into our experiences as, being a strong Black woman. And I guess I can start it off. For me, I feel like after doing the episode and after having to do the research for the episode, I feel like there is a pro and a con to it. It's a weird, ambiguous line for me, because it's like I love the idea of people, appreciating Black women and seeing our strength, because to be honest, we put through so much shit. It's ridiculous. So I appreciate the strength, but what I hate is the fact that because we're seen as so strong, it is now our downfall. It is now the thing that is sadly killing us. Like in medicine, there's no reason why in a medical book it says that black people, black women experience pain differently. I don't know where that came from. I'm like, no. And it's the fact that like in the UK, 5 times, black women are 5 times more likely to die giving birth. Meanwhile, in the US, it's 6 times more likely. It's just like there's no sense of taking a black woman as a woman first, as a human being first. But we're just meant to be strong. Like even for me, when I had my procedure on my ovaries, I was horribly mortified that like I'll be perceived as a strong black woman and they wouldn't take my pain seriously. And it was just like having that crippling fear was something that was like, I remember at that moment being like, I wish I wasn't seen as just a strong black woman, but rather just a woman. Like, I don't want to have that pressure on me because then maybe I'll be taken seriously. But so, like, with that, it's like a con and a pro, and I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it. But what does anyone else think about that?
I want to add on and just say thank you for being vulnerable with us and sharing that, and also just being vulnerable and making like an episode on this because it's a topic that needs to be talked about, right? Because
Yeah.
like, especially for me, you and I, we both go to a PWI institution, and we've seen a lot of things, and like, I've experienced a lot of like issues with that being a strong black woman, and as you stated, it's like a pro and a con because it's just like, it's a good thing because it's like it makes me feel powerful. It makes me, it distinguishes me from my peers. But it's also a con because it's like, oh, she's like the angry black woman. She's always like mad. But I'm like, you're mad just as I'm mad. So it's like, what's the difference? Because of my color? Like, it's really frustrating because it's just like, I don't know. It seems that like being a strong black woman is like kind of a downfall in a way, like as you stated, and it's just like, why is that, yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with it too. I feel you.
Yeah, I want to add to that too because I've been to the doctors in Ithaca and also in my home in Jacksonville, Duval 904 period. But I have experienced like white doctors not taking my pain seriously. Specific This is gonna get a little personal, but specifically at the gyno, like they like did not care about me when I tell you they really beat me up inside and out. And also being at the hospital in Ithaca when they were trying to give me shots and I don't know what they were giving me shots of. And I was like, whoa, like I was like, I need you to talk about it before you inject me. And it was a black man actually, T, that injected me with like this, I don't know what it was. I guess it was supposed to be a fluid of some sort to hydrate me or whatever. But there was no talk, there was no warning of, hey, I just want to let you know I'm giving a shot or whatever. I don't know whether they thought I was asleep. I was most definitely awake, but just having that fear of being like, who do you think I am? I don't know. I do see your perspective of like, oh, there is a downfall to being a black woman. At the same time though, me and you, Moyo, we both know we were raised by African mothers. And I stayed with my mom Monday through Friday and my dad had me on weekends. But staying with my mom, she didn't give a fiddly diddly do of how I perceived her as a woman because she knew at the end of the day she had children to raise. And I think it ended up creating this black strong woman inside of her to where like I don't have to care about what you think because I know I have responsibilities of my own. Not only do I have a child to raise, I have a generation to raise. And when I go outside, it is not only
Yes.
me going outside, but I'm carrying generations behind me. I'm carrying the
Mhm.
stereotype of the black woman behind me. And while that can be such like a tiring and struggle thing, the sad truth is there's not gonna be nobody to comfort and be like, oh, let me take that off of your back or whatever, because history has not given us the time to like relieve ourselves of that, and they never will, and that is the sad truth. But
Yeah.
there's also a power in that to know that I have generations that can turn you inside out, that could really make you rethink of like what you think about black women or what we have the capabilities to do. And like, yeah, you may think I may not have a voice or whatever, but at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter if you perceive me as angry. It doesn't matter if you perceive me as whatever, because it's not about what you think. It's about who is behind me, who are going to be the people that I mentor, the people I talk about, the people that the children I raise. Like, who's that going to be? Because you never know. Shoot, I might, birth the next Michelle Obama. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Her, okay.
Come on, Jessica.
So much. That's it. I'm done talking.
Cyerra, what about you?
I would love to follow this. So side note, I just texted Moyo because I have this beautiful book that was recommended to me by my auntie, that I would like to share with y'all in just a second. But just to give a little background on myself, um, I'm a mixed woman. My father is black. My mother is Dutch, Italian, German, so European white. She really was not in my life, so I was raised by mainly my father and my grandmother, his mother. Um, so pretty much had like a black female raising me for the most part, and because of that, I feel like I I mm, I was confused with what I was about to say. Anyways, I had a very big. I started to, as I got older, I started to have a very big village of women that became my mother figures. So my grandmother, my aunts, my stepmother, like, just my best friend's mothers too. Like, they all started to be able to pour these womanly things into me. Um, on top of the fact that I had to figure out a lot of how to be a woman by myself, because my grandmother is a generation before our parents, pretty much. So my grandmother, um, came from the 50s and 60s. So I was raised with 50s and 60s mentality plus current generational mentality from my father. Um, so a lot of that manifested in like really rigidness, like no physical connection, no hugging, no kissing, no nothing, no crying. My grandmother literally used to say, "Stop crying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like shit. Stop crying. That shit not gonna work on me." And I hated it because that's how I express my emotions. And then my father started saying it to me, and I was like, "The fuck y'all talking about?" But it was just an interesting thing in how that manifested itself, because I've seen a lot of trauma come from my grandmother's life that has been passed down to her children, and then even further their children and grandchildren and whatnot. But recently, my auntie, who is pretty much right now my spiritual teacher in a way, um, she recommended me this book, and I heard y'all ladies talking about a lot of health issues and just things related to reproductive health. And she's recommended me this book. It is called The Sacred Woman book by Queen Afua. It's like 20 something dollars on Amazon. I have not even scratched the surface on this book, and yet I have already learned a lot. Like, you can skip around in this book, you can read from front to back. It is pretty much a book on how to heal the feminine body, mind, and spirit, and how to do that spiritually and physically, and just change your lifestyle to be a more healthy woman, both mentally, physically, and spiritually. And the part that I'm at right now is just being able to learn how to like keep an altar properly. I just cleaned mine off today. I think that reattaching ourselves as Black women to spirituality is such an important thing. And it's been a really big part of my life recently. So I definitely wanted to share that with y'all, because I think that spirituality is so deeply connected to our wombs.
Yeah.
And our womb is what creates life. Black women are the blueprint. That's not even a lie. It's the fucking truth. Okay. Everything had to come from a Black woman. And my dad teaches me that. My dad is a single father. Okay. And he was the one who continually said that to me. All things come through the womb of a Black woman.
Yeah.
So strong, yes, we are. But we also need to remind ourselves that we are women who need to be nurtured and given, poured into by others.
So Courtney, I see that you wanted to
That's
add
all I'm
to
saying.
something that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, I want to add real quick. I saw the meeting time, but just real quick, just
It's
add on to
ignore
what you
that.
said
I don't
about
know what that
mental.
was. Ignore that. You're fine.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Because I feel like, I mean, my parents were not from the 50s, but my definitely like early 60s, late 60s. And that mentality is also in my house. And like, if I cry, my dad immediately screams. Hopefully he's not watching this because he's gonna get so mad. But he immediately is like, stop crying. Like, wait, stop it. Grow up. Be a man. Grow up. I'm like, but I'm not a man. I'm a woman. Like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, so like that mentality of like being strong is like so like forced upon me. Like, it's just like, well, what if crying for me, it's kind of like it's kind of a way, it's a way for me to release. And I feel like when I do that, I feel shameful because I've always been told as a kid that when you cry, you're weak. But and I've actually recently, I saw my parents cry recently, like last May, and that was the first time I saw like my dad be vulnerable, and I felt
Mm.
like, wow, like I just wish that like it was even like in society, yes, like I just feel like in my family, I just wish they were more genuine in regards to like my emotional health. I just feel like it's okay for me to cry, and also for people struggling with that, it is okay to cry. But
Yeah.
I also hate the fact that I have to like shield myself and like cry in private, like because they're not okay with me doing that because it's like I'm weak and you're supposed to be a strong woman. There's just so much expectation. That's the word. There's so much expectations with that, and it's just frustrating. Because it's like, why do we think like that?
Hmm.
But yeah, that's all I want to say.
I think one thing I do want to add is that, like, just like Jess said, we were raised by single African mothers, and just like everyone else, I really do think it's also when it comes to like the continent of African, like African cultures, there's this huge stigma against Black women crying. We're not allowed to show emotion. And it's one of the things that I brought up as like one of the five facets of being the strong Black woman is not being vulnerable and being independent. And like I said in the episode, I can count on one finger, on one hand, how many times I've seen my mother cry. And even with me, till this day, my mother will say, Moyo, why are you crying? Erase your tears. Stop crying. I hate it when you cry. Stop crying. I don't want to hear you if you are crying. And I'm here like, I just need to let the emotion out so that I can, figure things out. And especially for me, it's that like I didn't understand, and that's one thing I want us as Black women to talk about is vulnerability and how there is such strength in vulnerability. Because it wasn't until my sophomore year and I got a critique on one of my review notes about my lack of vulnerability. And talking to a Black female professor in our department, the only one, and she let me understand that, like, as a Black woman, especially as a Nigerian woman, there is that stigma against being vulnerable, and that was holding me back from being a great actress. It was the fact that I wouldn't be vulnerable, and I'm like, all right, now you're missing my money. Time to change that because this is meant to be my career, so I gotta fix it. And it wasn't until like last year that I fully made the decision to just let go and truly let myself be, because Chanel can attest to it. I love Chanel to death. She's a sister to me. But I fought this girl tooth and nail to let her into my life. I fought her. I said, you know what? I don't want to bother you with my issues. I don't want to all the extra BS that we give to just stay guarded. And for me, it was once I finally made the decision to be vulnerable, I found such strength in that now I'm like, I don't care if you judge me, if you see me crying in public, it's who I am, because my lack of not being vulnerable caused me to feel so alone in a room filled with people. Like it was bad. And now I'm just in a different space that it's like I enjoy being vulnerable, because what are you gonna do? Tell me I'm crying too much? Okay, congratulations. Do you want a cookie? Like, what else do you want? But does anyone have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Coming from like a Black household and stuff, I get told the same thing. That stop crying, don't do. They will send me to go do dishes. I'm crying, go do the dishes. Do this. So that's why still to this day, I'm upset. I go do dishes or I go clean the house or do something, right? So it's like those things get still installed in you, and like you were saying, Moyo, like, the other day, like, I was like that too, not to say whatever. And the other day I was mad and I was tight and I was texting Moyo paragraphs. Like, I'm saying this and that, like, about everything that we were talking about. And she was like, validating my feelings and things like that helped me, like, you know, having other women and other people telling me, like, yes, you're not bugging, like, your feelings matter regardless of whatever the situation is, really, really has helped me grow and be more vulnerable in general. And something, even now, still I struggle with it. Like, if some, it's not necessarily what people think about me, but it's like, damn, it makes you feel like you're crazy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, I'm feeling some way, and then somebody tells you, like, you're really dragging it, or you're exaggerating, you're overreacting, like, it's really not that serious. And for me, that's really like a trigger. And I really shut completely down when someone does that or really invalidate my feelings. Just like, all right, forget it. I'm gonna just go deal with it myself, go do some dishes. Versus like, I'm gonna be open to you. And then when people get mad, then when you are not open to them, but it's like, you already invalidated my feelings. Now I don't want to come
Mm-hmm.
back to you and talk to you. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's not intentional, right? So that's something that we also have to learn, that is always not intentional. Sometimes people just don't know how to listen
Mm-hmm.
properly either. So we have to, in order to be vulnerable, you also have to learn to be the listener and also be the person who is speaking, because okay, because you can easily invalidate someone else's feelings while still trying to promote, like, yeah, be vulnerable, but then, it doesn't have to be something as brutal as, like, okay, you're dragging or exaggerating, but it can be something small that can trigger the other person.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, one thing, like, I, Chanel, very much feel you with the don't cry thing, because again, like, I was told all the time not to cry. I would get in trouble, yelled at, all that if I started crying. My grandmother to this day will tell me she hates a crybaby. And as I got older, I started to be able to just look at her and be like, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. Because that is how I get my emotions out. And sending myself to therapy, and I thank the universe for blessing me with good health insurance, because I'm able to go to therapy and have, that support system that way. But um I one thing that you said made me think of meeting people where they're at. And that is, like, I feel like the hardest thing that people don't understand. Like, we are smart, we are self-reflective people, we are intuitive, like extroverted, all that. So we know these things are wrong. But a lot of the older generations, because they didn't have to think that way, they think that it's okay to do shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that it's not, but we have to unfortunately meet them where they're at, because we can only change ourselves. We can't make anybody else do what we want them to do. So it's a hard game, but it's like, once you kind of understand, like, meet them where they're at, it becomes a little bit easier. But it sucks we have to do that, because I feel like as Black women, we have to do that with not only our family, but with everybody else in the street. So we got to meet everybody else where they at with their knowledge that could be extremely limited, which, as we can see, it really is sometimes. But we have to do that constantly. So that's just crazy to me.
Okay, so now I want to bring.
Yeah. Oh,
Go ahead, Jessica.
no, go ahead.
No, 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 no. We're not about to do this, Jessica. You're gonna speak. Go ahead.
Lord. Okay. I was just gonna add that, like, yo, I don't know what people think, but it is in my perspective that other people think that Black women are a threat. I will never forget the lyric that Wale said. He was like, "The world is mine, but the womb is hers." Oh, and like, when I think about that, I just think, like, yo, as Black women, we have the power to birth, like, not only our own race, but birth other things, birth a nation. And I think people know that, and they try to mess with our heads, because you can hurt me physically, but if you can't get in here, it's not nothing. But when people try to get in here, like, as y'all were saying so well, like, don't cry, suck it up, you hold that voice that is supposed to be speaking out, its purpose is for speaking out, it stays right here, and it swirls, it starts getting in our heads. And I will speak for myself when I say, like, when stuff is in my head,
It really ended. Oh my gosh! I did upgrade now, you little twerp! Ah! Finish. End broadcast. All right. I'm so sorry, y'all. Technical difficulties, but we're back. So, Jessica, you were speaking.
I was saying that Zoom finds Black women as a threat. No, I'm just kidding. And that's what this is about.
Yeah.
Blood clot. But I wanted to say that no, the technical world and the real world finds Black women as a threat, period.
Yeah.
And I think that people see that and they try to use that to their advantage, whether it's knowingly or unknowingly. Like, I don't know what the fear is, and I would love to ask that. I don't know if I can ask questions. I'm not no
Go
host,
ahead.
but I would love to ask that of like the two male identifying people we have here. Thank you. Being like, what is the fear of Black? Like, I don't know. I've seen it from my father and a lot of Black men in my life where
Same.
I've been shut down. I've been walked on like a mocked. Like I've never had the opportunity to speak out unless it was for the purpose to fix something that was broken. If it is not something that needs to be fixed, my mouth is literally shut like a door, which is crazy. But I would love to ask that, or what your opinions of that is.
Who wants to go first? Y'all gotta
rock, paper, scissors.
I'm like, y'all.
Nah, but it's a lot to process. I'm really sitting here and actually having the ability to process what she's asking.
And listen, right?
I'm not even not scared to talk. You know that. It's just more about it. I don't feel like also that is something that I've ever been asked or had to address. Or again, it's different. I'm only gonna speak for me. Everything comes up from my perspective. But I was raised by two Black women, so their voices was all I heard. So it was kind of a different thing for me. Like, obviously, I've been in spaces where Black women's voices have not been heard, and I've been able to see it. My mom, my grandmother, my grandmother lived with me all the way till I was 19 years old. So my entire developmental period of growing up was raised by two Black women. So that was the only voices that I actually listened to, in a sense. If it wasn't by a Black woman, like, I even have a whole tattoo dedicated to Black women here. It's just like, so that's just me. So like when you asked me that question, it was more of a pause. Like, I don't even know, like, why, in a sense. And I guess, again, I can't answer for other people's experiences and like that. So that's why I froze for a second. It wasn't that I was scared. I just had no answer for you.
Schwartzen, do you have an idea?
I can't speak for all brothers or all men in that way, but tying back to what Moyo said about about the facts about Black women are killed at a higher rate because of pregnancy, right? And like I said, I took that to my lady, and she was like, when I give birth, I want a Black doctor. We had that conversation. To tie that all together, it was like, now I'm putting myself in a white doctor's shoes, right? I ain't a doctor, I ain't what I'm saying, I got a medical degree in that, right? If I got 6 Black women and they're all pregnant, and 4 out of 6 of them survive, right? Like let's go deep on this. 4 out of 6 of them survive. But if I got 6 white women and 6 out of 6 of them die, right? And they give them the painkillers and not the Black woman, in my mind, oh yes, she is stronger. She can take more pain. That's how I would think as a white doctor. Now that's how I would rationalize that. Of course, there's no irrational for hate and misogyny and things like that. But at the same time, I'm like, in my mind, yes, Black women are stronger than their white counterparts. And then going back to, of course, not to go too much into history, but slavery by itself, like Mother Moses and things like that. Like Mother Moses, when she said, I freed 1,000 slaves, but I would have freed 1,000 more if they knew they were slaves. Like, she didn't just help people, she went back to help. Now let's put that into context for today. If our mothers, right? If our mothers are the ones, or if our Black women are the ones who are the first, for boys, are the ones we fall in love with first, right? And our fathers are the ones we call our heroes first. If I see a Black woman play the part of both, automatically I'm going to think she's superhuman. I'm going to think yo, there's something abnormal about this spirit, this person, this energy. Let's say I'm 8 years old, I'm a kid. This energy, I can't comprehend everything because I'm only 8. There's something about this energy that's beyond human comprehension. And that's why I would credit to like, okay, yes, Black women are, I'm not gonna say they're supposed to be strong, but in my mind, yes, y'all are strong. I'm not gonna say they, but y'all are strong. It's something that I've never seen before. I can't put into words. I can't write a book on it. It's something you can't put into words because that energy and that spirit is undefeated. It's undefeated, yes. So I would say yes, we would be afraid. If you birth your own nation, us men would be in trouble, especially. Absolutely. If you birth your own nation, if you came up and collectively that came together, we would be in trouble. I would say we would be in trouble, like in a lot of ways. So that's why I would say with that part. Go ahead, Will.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, and because you know me, sure, you know how I do.
We here, baby.
The thing is, yes, Black women, it's undeniable. Regardless, we are strong. Like that's point blank, period. But what I want to bring to the table of discussion is that, and I'm gonna keep it within the community. We all Black here. Is that within the community that has now become a stigma and become a thing that damns Black women because of this perceived idea of Black women being strong. Like I said before in the podcast, Black men now view Black women as needing less protection, and on top of that are seen as knowing more things sexually, and that's a whole nother episode discussion about the sexual assault with Black women. But we're going to focus more on the fact that now Black men now see Black women as needing less protection, which in reality is not true. If anything, we need more. And for me personally, I can say that like I know how to defend myself regardless if it's a male or a woman, because for me, I had to put myself in the, just like a typical Black woman, if no one's going to do it for me, I'm going to do it myself. I did not grow up having a male figure there to teach me how to defend myself, how to protect myself. I had to learn for myself that like, if I'm in an uncomfortable situation, I need to know how to defend me and take on a guy. That's something that as a Black woman, I had to bear the brood of, but the truth is, would I like a Black man to be there to protect me? Hell yes. Would I like a Black man to be there to speak up for me? Yes. Sometimes, for me personally, I have experienced and witnessed Black men now being complacent and being like, she got it. She's strong enough to have it. Meanwhile, in reality, sometimes we're not. And to add on to what Jess was asking about, like, why some Black men are intimidated by Black women, in my opinion, from what I've witnessed with different men in my life and my mom's life and aunt's life, I feel like because Black men have seen Black women as needing less protection, they get intimidated and afraid of that. Like, well, if she got it, what am I doing here? Meanwhile, sometimes it's like, we just need you to offer. I'm not going to hold you. Some Black men, women do, come crazy and be like, nah, we got it, But like a lot of times it doesn't hurt to offer up that help, offer up that protection. I digress.
Yeah, I would like to add to that as well. I feel like, yes, we are superwomen, we are superheroes, but even superheroes need help, right? That's why you have the Avengers. They go together because they couldn't defeat Thanos by themselves.
Even Batman and Robin, he had Robin.
Exactly. So it's like, when you see superheroes, it's like, okay, yeah, you can do this or whatever, and they can catch a break when they lose a battle. But then us as Black women, if we like so vulnerable, or we do this or whatever, or we're even down a little bit, like I feel like at this point we're seen more as like a robot, to be honest, where we have to do this, and this the same way, rather than and not have any emotions and experience anything versus like even a superhero, because people have more empathy for superheroes, right? And see them, it's like, okay, you lost this battle, okay, get back up and let's keep going. Like, you got this, whatever, patch it up. And they hope you patch it up and lift you up and cheer you on. But Black women don't even get that at this point. It's more like, keep it pushing. Like, keep it pushing, keep it pushing. And kicking you while you keep pushing and keep kicking you and kicking you and kicking you and doing these things that just, it's impossible to even just be human, or for us to just have even a second that we take that time to cry. Because you take that time to cry, it's like, okay, I shed that one tear. Let's get back up. We got this homework. We got this podcast to do. We got this children to take care of. We got this or that or this, and I feel like it's exhausting, no matter what age. As a little girl, and I can't remember a time where I don't feel like exhausted from even just in my mind of like not feeling like I just took a breath, like an actual breath of not having something to worry about, whether it's kids or like friends or whatever the case is. And even when I'm doing self-care, it's still with the intent in my mind of like something else. So yeah, we're practicing self-care, but in reality, our self-care always ends up being caring for something or someone else.
Yeah.
It's never just us.
Cyerra?
Yeah, if I could, I want to go back to what Schwartzen was saying about like perceiving Black women how he has. And I think that I very much understand what you were saying, Schwartzen, because that was what you were exposed to. Same thing with Tate. Like, y'all had these Black women that could literally, in your eyes, do everything. And that's not your fault. And I think that a lot of what we have now is a result of what society has constantly pushed onto Black women. So, of course, their children are going to see them as such because they have to act like this outwardly to pretty much survive. And again, I think as we get through generations and generations more, we're figuring out that like, okay, we can let it down a little bit and we can change the way that we interact with our children, and we can show our children that while we are great and while we are the children of this amazing universe, like we are still human beings and we are still vulnerable. We still have our faults. We still allow ourselves to be human. And that right there, that shift in mindset and that shift in perspective is only going to take time. Like we obviously work, but it's going to be time. And I believe that our generation is really starting that, which is great and amazing. And I love that. But we have a cycle so deep that needs to be broken. Like, it will take years for all remnants of slavery to be destroyed. And honestly, I don't even think that that's going to be able to be possible, because while we need to never forget that, we also have to be able to forgive that, and not forgive in the way that everybody thinks you forgive. Like, oh, hey, white people, this was okay now, and now we're okay. That's not the forgiveness that I'm talking about. I'm talking about acceptance forgiveness, like from within, forgiving what happened to your ancestors and what happened to you because of what happened to your ancestors. That is something that is really, really, really important. And changing a mindset and being a person who breaks a cycle within your own family is not easy. It's amazing, but it's not easy. But being able to understand that there is a cycle and you are stepping outside of that cycle is the first step, and honestly the most difficult step. Like, realizing that there's something wrong is very difficult. So I think that while we don't want to be perceived as these very rigid creatures because of what was put on us literally since slave days, like we also have to take the good out of that and then now teach our children, like, hey, this happened to me, but I fixed it and I did the work that I needed to do, and this is why you see who you see, which is your mother or your father or whoever is in your life. So taking the lessons that Tate and Schwartzen were talking about, that they saw their mothers and grandmothers and Black women in their lives give, I think is really important to making us better and stopping the cycle of they are only robotic women, they are only superhumans, and transferring that into they are heroes, but they are humans.
I have a question, and I'm going to give the guys time to think about this while we move on to something else. And the question is, before this conversation now that we're having, did you ever, like growing up, ever think that the black woman in your life had a weakness or needed help from other black men or other people in the community? And I'm gonna let y'all, have your time to think about that, and because so we can have a conversation about it. But for the black women, while they take their time to think, um, there's one. There was one stat that really struck me. Besides the idea that certain black men view black women needing less protection, is the fact that between the ages of 13 to 17, we attempt suicide more than any other race. And for me, it struck me because I'm like, oh, I'm part of that, percentage, because being black, one is a doozy and a half, and then being a black woman is another extreme. But seeing that stat and knowing that like we attempted a lot more, it's scary. And I guess my discussion with you guys is, how does that affect your mentality moving forward? Because honestly, we're young adults, so very soon we'll be having our very very soon, in like 10 years, having our own black children. How y'all are annoying. But like, how does that make you feel knowing that statistic? Yeah.
Sorry, it's scary. It's scary for me, um, because knowing the thoughts that I've had being young, and still like I also go to therapy, so going to the therapist and saying these stuff, like these are not things that I would want my children to ever have, or ever even try to attempt. Obviously, they're not avoidable. You can't do. I mean, you can like help them and guide them, obviously, but I would never want them to want to have the same thoughts or be even in that place, that we've experienced, because we've talked about them, and
Yeah.
it's just a dark place, and it's really scary to even see other people. Have
Mhm.
nieces and cousins and little all these family members that
Yeah.
they are young black women, and
Yeah.
it's scary when I see them. I have another cousin. She's 18 now, and I think about her all the time because this is like the prime time. It's like, she's going to college, like
Mhm.
all these other things that happen. And that's when I first started experiencing like
Mm.
my first like really jumping into the world, like, oh my God, even though I was always mature
Mhm.
and I was out here, whatever, like chilling and all these other things. So I grew up a little faster, but you don't really notice things till you're in a different space.
Yeah.
I grew up in Washington Heights. Everyone was like me.
Yeah.
We all look the same. We all like chill the same. When I stepped out, and I was like, oh, there's other black people coming from different places. There's all these white people, so I got to deal with them, and I have to deal with, like, it was just so different. And then noticing that, oh shit, other people have the same experiences as me. Um, it's it was like really super eye opening, and also really really scary, because while I went through these like dark places, there are other people that, not to validate my own like places, but that were taken a step further, and
Mhm.
like that was just learning more and more and more. I was just like, oh nah, this is scary. And I think I was in high school the first time that I knew like someone that was super young that like um killed themselves or something, and they was like,
Mhm.
I was like, I think they were like 9 years old. It was like a black,
Mhm.
like a little black boy, I think, and they were like 9 years old. And I was like, that's like at 9 years old, this is
Mhm.
a possibility or a thought that happens in a child's head, especially like a young black child. And I was like that terrified me.
Mhm.
And I was, I would never want my child or anyone's child or any other black woman,
Mhm.
regardless of their age, to even have that thought. Obviously, it's not possible, but if
Mhm.
I can do something about it, I 100% would just take away that thought, and I pray against it
Mhm.
every day for everyone, because that's just it's scary, and
Yeah.
it's just something super scary for me.
Yeah, I would definitely like to add on to that. Hearing that statistic is very disheartening. More than disheartening. If there was a word for it, I would say it. But I also do believe that I no one ever tells you And thank God we're in 2021 where we have women such as Moyo and Chanel and Courtney, Cyerra, like people that are here to tell these young women, like, you are strong. If I would have heard that when I was young, I would have never contemplated suicide. I would have never cut myself. And as many people who are out there listening, I pray against any type of spirit or any type of thought that like that comes to you. If it does come to you, like I pray against it heavily. But I don't mean to like get too Christian, and I do not want to force that on anyone, but I have learned that people are very disappointing. And as we've like spoken many times before, as much as we want people to protect us and be there for us, we cannot depend on them to, because like people are just terrible. They're it's sad. It's a sad truth, and the world is not going to stop turning. We cannot make it stop turning. And the sad truth is, when it comes to like things such as suicide, it's like the world has gotten into our mind without us realizing that we have the control over the world, bro. Like Black women, like we literally, we can do anything we set our mind to. We can inspire, we can create, we can multiply, like we can create our own nations, we can do all of these things. But no one tells us that at a young age. So like for me, I'll speak for myself when I say I could be, and I was manipulated very much at a young age, and I would have believed anything that anybody told me, because I didn't know A from B from C from D, which is why I had to, thank God I'm now like in religion and in Christianity. I had to get like so into Jesus, because I had no one else to cry to, because I don't know, Jesus. Like I wish I could explain it. People are so disappointing. It's like I couldn't go to no one to express how I feel, because no one would understand how I felt, even if I expressed it in my own way. No one could. I couldn't explain my pain because no one could feel that. There is a weight that Black women carry on their shoulders every single day, and it is detrimenting if we do not let that go. And I will say, it's not only for older Black women, but it's for younger Black women. It's for teenagers. You know how many times like I've been picked on, called names, like spat on, like it, like not only in that, in social media, like people like do not accept me because I'm too dark skinned, or I have spots on my skin, or my legs don't look like her legs, or blah 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 blah. Like those things will eat at you if you do not know the truth from a young age. So while I can say that statistic is disheartening, I will also say it's not surprising, because if we, as Zia was saying earlier, if we do not make it our business to teach like the children behind us and the young ones behind us the power that they hold inside of them, this world will manipulate them and eat them up alive. And sometimes it does, which is disappointing. But sometimes we have like strong Black women, like as I'm looking at right now on this camera, that do have the power to be like, yo, you are worth so much more than what you think you are worth. And like there's just so much truth that I'm only 20, I'm only 21, but there's still so much truth I feel like I haven't absorbed yet, and so much that I'm ready to learn. But I do know that I would not be here if it wasn't for a man named Jesus.
Hallelujah.
Like if I did not have religion in my life, I can say there is a very big chance that I would not be here today. So it definitely, as a Black woman, I definitely recommend putting your faith in something, even if that isn't religion for you. What is that for you? Is it the call of your ancestors? Is it I don't know, meditation, yoga? Is it like being in something that makes you feel at peace? Because people will not give you that peace. You have to find that within yourself through maybe either the things of this world or the things outside of the world. And for me is God Almighty, period. But that's all I'll say on that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make this a little bit quick because I do have to go in a few minutes. But and Miss Moyo knows mine. I'm on my way. But like Jess said, the statistic is disheartening but not surprising, and I was a part of that. And you know what's crazy is that it came from the reason that I was a part of that is because of the Black woman in my life. I contemplated, I didn't want the pain of death, but I wanted to not exist anymore, because I was made to feel like everything was my fault and that everybody else would just be better off if I was not around to make mistakes that they blamed me for, but I didn't realize that it was their own trauma getting in the way of, which is why I'm such a strong, big advocate for mental health services, because I think that with that, I could have avoided a lot of things, or other people could have avoided doing a lot of other things to me. But always what will stick out in my head, and this is super personal, but I feel like this is very relatable. Because my mother is white, I said to my grandmother one day when things blew up, like, you are the reason I want to die. And she said to my cousin, not to me, but in earshot of me, oh, that's the white part of her. Yeah, and that is shocking. But it's not abnormal. And I have forgiven my grandmother for that, and that was a very rough process, but I will never forget that she said that to me. So I really think that we have to be the ones to never allow those words to pass from our lips. And by doing so, doing the mental and spiritual work that it takes to be better women to our children. Because honestly, I can say right now, the spiritual journey, the mental journey, all the healing that I'm doing right now is it is for myself, but it's for my children. I will say that all the time. I was put here to be a mother, and I think about that all the time. My middle name is Isis, supposed to be a Set, but I was given that name for a reason. She is the mother goddess of ancient Egypt, and I really believe that that is within me, to be a mother, to be a Black mother to my Black children, and never to allow those sins of the mother and of the father to affect my children. And if it does, I hope that with every generation we can have that effect be less and less. So yeah, that was crazy. Got really deep right there. So
that's fine. It is a hood. It is a community hood with sisters and brothers. We are all safe.
Yeah, and I know that, like, I also, this is kind of off topic, but I really hate that I was given light skin privileges. And I see that now, and I hate colorism with a passion, because there was a lot of things that I was told in my childhood that were like, "Ooh, hey, you're pretty because you're light skinned, and you're foreign because your mom is Dutch and you speak another language." Gross. But then also the other side of that, like, being one of the only, actually, my brother and I are the only mixed children who are mixed in my family with white. So having that be like an issue for me is like, oh wow, Cece's the white girl. She's the white girl. She's the white girl. She's gonna like white boys. She's gonna be with a white man. She does this because she's a white girl, because her mom is a white girl. So having that conflict of like, am I Black enough? Because I don't want to be white. I want to be Black, but it's like, am I Black enough to do this? Am I Black enough to do that? And all of that kind of culminated into, I don't want to be here anymore. So yeah, it's tough. And I pray, again, like everyone else, against that being a thing for other young Black people and other young people of color, and honestly, young people in general, because I hate that. But I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I'm going to head out. Y'all are all beautiful people, and I will see you soon, I hope. Love you all. Thank you.
Later.
Okay, so in like 10 minutes, we're just gonna wrap this up. Courtney and then the guys can answer the question, and then we, have a closing remarks.
Yeah, just real quick. I just want to add on to what Jess said about being disappointed, because in regards to the statistics, sorry, I don't know why I couldn't say that. I also was a part of that, and I remember when I attempted to suicide, my parents were like, "You're just doing it to show off," and I really didn't. Like, I really was like confused by that. Like, my parents and just in the Black community, it's like, yeah, like, its mental health is not really like looked at towards Black, people in general, which is like frustrating, because it's like we experience the same thing as the world. And for them to be like, yeah, you're just doing it to show off, and to like have people like, just to have more attention, that's the word, to have attention. And I was just like, no, I really feel like I'm in a dark place. I grew up in a Black neighborhood, but I also went to white schools. I went to a white school, elementary school, and I had my mom tell me so many things. It was very traumatizing. It was very like, oh well, I even asked my mom like, oh, I hope they don't watch this. I even asked my mom, I was like, hey, like, why did you give me this name? She's like, well, I wanted you to have a job, like for real, like yeah, for real. And there's so much other things that like that have been said. I don't want to get into it, but like, it's 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 frustrating and it's hard and it's disappointing because I would also like look at my friends and I would try to seek guidance in that area, and it's just like there'd be times that they're just not available or they just don't want to deal with me, and that's okay. Like, it's okay not to be able to deal, yeah, because that's not our job. But as just stated, like I think not I think I know Christianity has definitely helped me tremendously with that, because it's like I am looking towards Jesus. I'm looking towards God for guidance rather than looking at man and or just humans in general. So it's just, yeah, it's definitely like a weird thing. I don't want to keep too much time, but yeah.
You guys are fine. Okay, so the guys will be the closers. Do you guys need to repeat the question? Or do you? Okay. Okay, so the question was basically asking, has there been a moment where have you noticed in your life that you've never, or probably maybe never, thought that the black women in your life needed help? Like you kind of saw them as superheroes. Yeah.
I needed like nurturing and protecting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nurturing and protecting.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, I'm gonna set this stand right now. I'm gonna take a couple minutes. I remember everybody went to college. I don't know if you remember, but freshman orientation, they talked about sexual assault on campus, right? They introduced you to rape culture.
Yeah.
And they say, hey, if you're a man, 1 out of 4 of you, 25% will be sexually assaulted. I looked around, a couple brothers stand up, okay, mind my business. Then it went to the women. They said every other woman stand up, and it went to the women. So 50% of women will be sexually assaulted on college campuses. And then again, I looked around, I'm 18. I'm like, well, it seems like, what I'm saying, like 18-year-old me is, well, it doesn't seem like my problem, right? Don't get me wrong. Like, I understand, like, so Moyo, the answer to your question is very simple, but the way to get there is complex. It is simple because, yes, I know that I want to raise not just black women, black boys, but black girls, to love themselves, to learn to love themselves, to learn that they don't necessarily, they aren't invaluable, that they're more than what they believe they are, that what the media says about them isn't true, things like that. I want to raise that. That's the kind of man I want to be. I'm true to that every single day. But at the same time, it's like, well, if rape culture isn't affecting me, right? I have that privilege where it's like, all right, and nobody gonna mess with me. I'm musclehead and all that. Is it my problem? And this is a mentality, like you mentioned in the video, the slave mentality. Yeah. If it's not my problem, does it affect you? If I'm not in that statistical category, does it affect me? And again, the answer is yes, because it's gonna affect those I love. It's gonna affect those who are affected by them. It's gonna affect, the people I approach. And then if sexual assault and rape culture, it doesn't affect men, quote unquote, and it affects men, and it affects women more, well, men got to step up. Because who are we protecting our black women from? Men, right? Like, we're protecting, it's from other men. It's from this mentality that their body doesn't belong to them. It's from other men that think they can take control of a woman because of alcohol and things like that. Like, rape culture is a culture that the women had to was introduced to at a young age, unfortunately. Some men, of course, some boys as well, of course, as well. But at the same time, it's like white privilege. If we don't do something about it, like it's not their problem. Like white privilege is not a privilege it's not like a black people problem when it comes to that. Well, I mean, it is, but you know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, when it comes to rape culture, like, men have to come in and do something about that instead of it thinking it's a woman's problem. Yeah. And that's why I believe, yes, we have to protect, we have to nurture, we have to cultivate some emotional, healthy children for the next generation.
Tate, do you have anything to add?
Well, I'll I would love to be able to add on to that, but I'm going to like also address more to some things he pointed in there that also would be a walk away from the question. But to answer the question you were necessarily speaking about, wait, are you asking if I ever saw it or did I ever expect it?
What I'm asking is that have you ever realized or expected that, black men would nurture black women, but you just subconsciously you probably thought you were nurturing the black woman, but in reality you weren't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna just give it a whim. I don't even, so I feel like so much has been said that like I feel like it's a little cloudy. But okay, I guess I didn't recognize anything that the black woman needed help until I saw a black woman cry. And it was growing up. Okay, I know I got like 2 minutes. So like for example, like I've seen my mother do something. She worked multiple jobs and 2-3 jobs and never missed a basketball game for me. College football games come up on Saturdays when I played at Ithaca to make sure that she can see me. When I was playing in Massachusetts, she would drive every single, 3 hours every Saturday in different locations to see me play football. My dad, who's been, a connection is a whole nother side, but she's been present for 24 years, going on 25 years of my life. It wasn't, again, like Schwartz said, like, you don't see it. It's not something that, it's kind of hard to see something, like trying to imagine something you don't see. And again, hearing all the stories tonight, realizing it, like, yes, like there's so many times that you would see, but I probably wouldn't even notice that a black woman's hurting. And it wasn't until my mom cried, and she's cried maybe, I've seen her cry maybe 4 times in my entire 24 years of life, that you realize that there's a weakness and there's that shield that they hold up, that black women hold up, isn't, impeccable. It isn't you can't, it's not impossible to dent. So I guess leaving off that, it wasn't until I was about maybe 9-10 years old, but I still didn't understand it and didn't know how I could protect her at such a young age or what she needed due to the fact that it's just so much complex mind, complex society, and so much that is put on black women to stay strong. So even with her crying, she still, at the end of the day, after her tears was wiped, took care of everything and went back to the job that we have known black women to do. So yes and no. I don't know if I answered the question. But
you answered it.
Like 30 seconds. Okay.
You answered it. So I'll wrap this up because I don't know what's going on with my internet today, but it's acting stupid. Thank you guys so much for joining the Black Panel Live. Please remember to get your BB merch. Follow my co-host and guest on social media. I will put that all in the bio. I love you guys. See you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.